Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, on this Thursday morning. Hope you're having a great day. You know, I'm doing a regular ongoing series of videos and articles, both for priceofbusiness.com and the sister news website, the national news website, usdailyreview.com, talking about the issue of ADD and ADHD and really developing a balanced and healthy approaches to it. Obviously, prescription drugs is a growth industry, and they've also done a lot of good to help individuals. But the issue is balance and coming up with a healthy approach, which is why we're partnering with our good friend Frank Granett, who's a pharmacist by profession, but also an advocate on developing a healthier way to approach these issues. And always delighted to get you on the program, Frank. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization, and then introduce your guests.
Great to be on this program today with you, Kevin, and we have a special guest with us today. But, the Coalition Against Over-Medicating Our Youth, which is CAOOY, I founded that coalition to basically give parents a direction, if you will, because the assessment process when your child or a loved one is struggling with behavioral challenges, they want the clear, concise information on an action plan on how to go about that assessment process. So when I developed that protocol and that type of action plan across the country, I consult with many parents and educators. And when they activate these types of risk factors and go after the risk factors, we come across a solution to the problem before we go to premature drug therapy. And today, Kevin, we have a great guest with us. She is Dr. Marilyn Benoit. She is the Chief Medical Officer and Senior Vice President of Devereaux, which is the largest nonprofit foundation, behavioral health care nonprofit in our country. And what's specifically great to know about Dr. Benoit is that she's a nationally known advocate for children, and she founded the AACAP, which is the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, along with the Child Welfare League of America. And basically, this program that she's developed, it helps children in out-of-home placement. She's a nationally and international lecturer, and she's published widely on issues very critical to the children's behavioral health. And Dr. Benoit, thanks for being with us, with Kevin and I today.
Well, thank you. Good morning, and thank you for such a generous introduction. I just have to correct a couple of things. I wish I were the founder of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. I'm a past president. It was actually founded 60 years ago, and I'm a past member.
You're kind of glad you are but you're also kind of glad you weren't the founder. It started 60 years ago.
And
part of me is kind of glad about that.
On the board of trustees of the Child Welfare League of America, which also is quite an older organization. But what that essentially kind of pinpoints is the fact that I've been involved in the issues of children and behavioral health for a long time, and particularly focused on children who are underserved and underprivileged. And that's where the Child Welfare League, of course, takes care of kids who are in the out-of-home placements, etc. So, and I'm sure that you're well aware that that's an area that people are very concerned about, quote, over-medication of children in the foster care system. Mm-hmm. So I would say that, yes, I'm a big advocate, and I really keep my eyes on that, because we have to be judicious about the way we manage the use of medication in everybody, but particularly in kids who are most vulnerable population.
And Dr. Benoit, we talked in the past, we talked about the term differential diagnosis, and if you can explain that to our listeners, why is that so important? Why should people, especially parents and even corporations and businesses with their Human Resources Department with behavioral health. Why should they understand what that means, differential diagnosis?
You. That term, differential diagnosis, is what I consider an essential tool in the whole medical field. What it is that we as physicians have to take an approach of starting at the very beginning when people come in with symptoms and look at what are the possibilities in terms of every system in the body. So we take that and we begin to critically say, could it be this? Could it be the brain? Could it be the lungs? Could it be the endocrine system? And as you do that kind of thinking, you begin to rule out some possibilities, and it allows you to narrow the field, so to speak, as to where you need to do your diagnostic evaluations. Even after that, you come up with the possibility. It can be one of, let's say, maybe 3 different diagnoses. And then how do I decide? And you go on with further testing, diagnostics, to really come down and say, it is X, or it is X and Y, which is possible. We call that comorbidities. So with ADHD, it is so critical that you just don't go and fill out a checklist, and so many of these add up to, this equals ADHD. Because the truth is that if you think from a differential diagnosis point of view, some of those symptoms can be related to different things. Mm-hmm. And I'll share with you one of the, a case that I actually handled where this kid, mother knows, mother school knows, she feels that she knows ADHD, and she came in already with the diagnosis, handing me the diagnosis and wanting me to begin with medication. And as a physician, I use my tools in differential diagnosis, and what it led me to was actually a traumatic brain injury in this kid. And then I referred him to a neurologist, because that's outside my scope of practice, for further evaluation and treatment.
We only have a couple of minutes left, literally. Let me ask you real quickly, is your website, what is your website?
I do not use a website for my work with Devereaux. Okay.
How would we get more information about you online?
Devereaux.org, DEVEREUX.org, www.
Awesome. Frank, need you to wrap it up for us today?
Well, Dr. Benoit, I appreciate you being on our program, and the work you're doing at Devereaux, just so our listeners understand, you treat or actually help thousands of children and adults that are battling, emotional, educational, as well as developmental disabilities, and help them recover and help them lead normal lives. How do you go state to state? I know you're in Houston, where Kevin's at, but how do you make a decision, or, Devereaux, as far as going into other states like that? I mean,
that's something.
And I need your answer to be about a minute, literally about a minute.
That predated me, and Miss Devereaux is someone who was invited, actually, to come into different states. But before we end, I want to say one thing about the ADHD stuff, that it's really critical to look at the whole child, to really find out what the child is doing about sleeping, eating, exercise. Those are so important before you really go into using the medication. As I said, medication may be useful, but you need that full evaluation.
Frank, I need your websites real quick before I wrap it up.
Yeah, it's CAOOY.org, and if you'd like more information about Dr. Benoit, you can look at her website, which is Devereaux.org. And thank you, Doctor, for being with us today.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
That's great information. I'm Kevin Price. Thanks to both of you. When we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you, great content from our ongoing series that Frank and I are doing can be found at both usdailyreview.com, the national news website, and, of course, priceofbusiness.com. And you're listening to The Price of Business.